Welcome to this edition of Vision of Progress. I'm Jim Heald, your host for today, and we will be meeting with Nathan Sparks, the EDC's new Executive Director that we recently hired. Welcome, Nathan. I'd like to welcome both you and your family to Okaloosa County.
Thank you, Jim. It's truly a pleasure to be here.
Before we get started with your background, I'd like to explain to the audience a little bit about what the process was that the EDC went through to hire you. We had a very structured process, which obviously you were aware of because you were part of it, where we set up a search committee that was headed by Greg Britton, who is one of our executive committee members. We had 6 people on the search committee. We set up advertisements nationwide with the International Economic Development Council websites, and in Florida with the Florida EDC, and of course advertised locally. We were very pleased with the quality of the applicants, had 34 applicants that put in their resumes and applications. And then we used a very structured process to down select. We had a scoring matrix and criteria based on education, experience in the economic development world, whether or not there were certificates, people's experience with the state and the federal governments, people's experience with grant programs, people's experience with not-for-profits and public sector activities. We down selected to 6 candidates and had telephone interviews, which obviously you were a part of. And from that, we then down selected to 3 individuals that we did face-to-face interviews. And it was unanimous after we did the face-to-face interviews that Nathan was the person that we thought could best take us forward into the future. And for that, Nathan, I appreciate all the efforts that you did and your application. You have a powerful resume, and we'll learn a little bit more about that in this segment. What did you think of the process?
Well, I have to say, I thought the process was very well structured. It was thorough. It was, from the candidate's perspective, it was seamless. Each step of the process, it was well articulated by the committee as to what the expectations were, and I found it to be a very rewarding process. Obviously, I persevered and ended up in this seat, so I'm very pleased with the outcome, but it was a very good process, and I commend the members of the search committee on a well-structured process. I know that oftentimes, when you have volunteers involved in that process, it can be a challenge to coordinate schedules and to coordinate timing and such, but it was very seamless.
Well, very good, and once again, congratulations. This segment of the program, what I'd like to do is to get the audience to know Nathan Sparks a little bit. So let's start off with your most recent job. You've just come down from Brunswick, Georgia, and you were the Executive Director up there of the Brunswick and Glenn County Development Authority.
Correct.
What are the similarities between that job and what you'll be doing down here?
Well, Jim, it's a good question. It's a coastal community, Brunswick is. So, it shares many of the same coastal dynamics with Okaloosa County. Obviously, it also shares some of the same key sectors. Brunswick also includes St. Simon's Island, Jekyll Island, areas that are known for hospitality and tourism. And obviously here in Okaloosa County, we're very well known for hospitality and tourism. In Glenn County, that's the major driver of the economy. Here, that's one of the major drivers of the economy. So truly there are similarities. The other thing that I will point out is that there's a federal presence in Brunswick. The Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, which is the epicenter of Homeland Security training for 90 different federal agencies, is in Glenn County. And with that presence, I have some experience working directly with the federal government, which I know will certainly benefit me here with the presence of the bases.
Absolutely. As you've mentioned, our 2 main economic drivers today are both the defense sector that we have with Eglin Air Force Base and the surrounding Navy activities, Army activities on the base, and we do have Homeland Security that comes in. And then tourism is obviously a very large part. And we'll get into some thoughts about how we might expand those into different areas a little bit later. But you're not a newcomer to this local area. I believe in the past that you were actually part of the St. Joe Company.
That's correct. The manager of economic development for St. Joe for 4 years, and my job in that position was to focus on Northwest Florida and to essentially promote St. Joe's holdings first and foremost, but to work directly with the economic development community throughout the region. So I got to know many of these players around the region, and I will say that the Okaloosa EDC was always viewed as one of the shining stars of the Northwest Florida region. In that capacity, I gained a whole new appreciation for the unique attributes of Northwest Florida in terms of military presence, in terms of the industrial composition, in terms of the workforce characteristics. So those things are certainly items that I believe will benefit me in my new position. Having that experience, having met many of the players before, having developed that professional network, those are things that certainly are key to success in this role.
Absolutely. And while you were at St. Joe Company, you were a important part of the stand-up of Florida's Great Northwest.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about that formative stage of Florida's Great Northwest?
Absolutely. You know, the Northwest Florida region, Jim, had not, let's just say it had not been a priority for much of the state economic development infrastructure, the support network that we've had in Florida for many years. And it was felt that we needed a way to ratchet up the visibility of Northwest Florida, to let the state as a whole know that this region was a very viable location for economic development. And so with that in mind, corporate interest and local economic development interest and workforce providers came together and essentially said, let's create a new model. Let's create a regional marketing umbrella that was tailored to promote Northwest Florida over and above other efforts that were out there. So the original concept of a marketing umbrella was what brought Florida's Great Northwest to bear. And I was involved in that along with others from many of the partners in the region. And it was extremely rewarding to have a hand in building that effort and to be there for those early stages of that process. I did have the opportunity at a later point in time to serve as the interim director of that organization, and that was also rewarding in the sense that we were in transition. We were facing a situation where we had had a change in leadership, and with that said, we knew that we needed to reassure our partners and needed to make certain that our mission was still properly calibrated. And so we went about the process of shoring up support during that time frame, and I was responsible for really managing that effort. And I'm proud to say that it was a successful effort that led to a new chapter for the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you're aware that the current director, executive director for Florida's Great Northwest is Larry Sassano.
Right.
Larry, of course, was our previous president. And I think you worked with Larry earlier as part of the Florida's Great Northwest.
I did. I got to know Larry well. Larry and I had the opportunity to travel to some trade shows together. I was, of course, working on behalf of St. Joe and Florida's Great Northwest, but we had many of the local organizations represented at trade shows. Putting forth a real solid team regional effort was something that we took to heart, and having representatives from around the region at those trade shows, I think, is incredibly important. So we had many instances to work trade shows together. Larry was involved in calling on companies with us, and it was a great partnership.
So now we almost have a reversal of the roles, and that'll be great to see that dynamic as we move forward.
Look forward to it.
Well, that's not all of your background. I know you started your economic development activities in Birmingham, Alabama. So if I take you way back to then, what were some of the things you learned during your formative years?
Well, you know, actually I was fortunate to get started in economic development as an intern in college in Georgia. I was at Oglethorpe University and was selected for an intern program, and really had never had the opportunity to learn much about economic development, but applied for an internship program with Governor Zell Miller and was assigned to work at the Georgia Department of Industry, Trade, and Tourism, and knew of economic development, but that was about it. And really fell in love with the business, and knew that this was the career that was for me right off the bat, frankly. I like the fact that what we do is essentially help other people find opportunity, and we do that in so many different ways. It's a very diverse industry and profession, as you know, but that experience led me to apply for a job back in Birmingham, which is my hometown, as you've mentioned, and that initial position was research analyst for the Economic Development Partnership. Working in that capacity, my focus, Jim, was to promote Alabama in terms of the automotive industry and to research emerging opportunities in that sector, specifically target companies that were perhaps not yet to the point where they had a project in hand or an announcement of an expansion opportunity, but were growing and were obviously hitting certain benchmarks that made them good candidates for growth. And so with that in mind, as a research analyst, my background ultimately is research oriented, and I still take that with me to this day. I think that in order for economic development to be effective, you have to be almost scientific in your approach. You have to winnow out opportunities before our competition winnows them out. And that's really what target industry research is all about, identifying those companies that are ripe opportunities for expansion, in our case in Okaloosa County.
So you've really seen the economic development activities from the ground up, all the way from the very beginnings of the process up to being the executive director at a similar organization to ours. So that's fantastic. Well, we've spent a little bit of time learning about your professional background,
right.
But of course you've got a personal background also. And tell us a little bit about, you're married, have a family?
I do, and proud father of a almost 7-year-old, a son named Jackson, my wife Susan, and they're very excited about moving to the area, I might add. You know, we've fallen in love with the coastal lifestyle in Georgia, right. And while I was single when I lived here previously, we've had the opportunity to visit here often, and my wife and son have really truly fallen in love with the area. I grew up vacationing down here, you know, being in Birmingham. As most of our viewers know, this is a popular destination for folks from Birmingham and places north. So I grew up coming down here and eating at Perry's Italian, and you know, coming to Okaloosa Island, and really knew very early on that this was a special community, and I just feel so fortunate to have the opportunity to now come back with my family.
Well, that's great, and we're happy to have you here, Nathan, and want to welcome you and Susan and Jackson to the local community. We've been chatting with Nathan Sparks, the new Executive Director for the Economic Development Council of Okaloosa County. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about some of his vision for where we're going to take economic development in this county in the future.
You get an idea. You want to build your brand using the most powerful advertising medium, television. You call Cox Media. They meet with you, write a script, and film a commercial. You love it. They logically target your client base by placing the ad on the proper networks. Then over 140,000 eyes watch it in Okaloosa and Escambia counties. That gets business booming. And that's how things work at Cox Media. It's smarter advertising.
Welcome back to the EDC's Vision of Progress. I'm Jim Heald, your host for today, and we're still with Nathan Sparks, who is our new Executive Director for the Economic Development Council of Okaloosa County. In the past segment, we got to know a little bit about Nathan and his professional background, and in this segment, we're going to talk about the EDC and its future. Nathan, I'm sure you know that this past year our focus has been on preserve and diversify, essentially preserve our current activities that we've got and to start looking at how we can diversify a little bit. What is your thoughts about that as a focus?
Well, I think it's, Jim, I think it's spot on, frankly, and I like the fact that preserve is stated first in that statement, because I think that you truly have to take care of the businesses and the economic engines that you have in order to be successful in attracting additional businesses. You know, my experience has been that you know, new industries that are considering your area, they take what folks like Nathan Sparks says with a grain of salt. They know that I'm a paid promoter, and they know I'm going to say everything's wonderful, and that that's my job to do that. But when they truly want to get a feel for an area, they will talk with their peers. They will talk with those businesses who've had experience doing business in that community, who have had the opportunity to grow and expand in that community, and they'll ask those questions. They will say, has your community been supportive? Is the leadership supportive? Have they helped you succeed? And so that's why I like the fact that preserve is stated first in that statement. Now with diversify, obviously we've got a real opportunity here. And when I was interviewing for this position, I talked with some friends in the site selection world. The viewers may know that site selection consultants are often hired by businesses to advise them on where to put new facilities. So as I was evaluating Okaloosa County, I was very interested in hearing feedback from these professionals. And one thing that was a sort of a resounding, recurring theme, if you will, is the consultants truly felt like Okaloosa County was two-dimensional, and you've hit on it with the two-legged stool concept, the fact that we have two very important engines in hospitality, tourism, and the defense community, but the consultants really felt like we're missing that third component, the commercial industrial sector. And you know, many of them, you know, suggested that that was something we needed to focus on. And so I think that's what the diversify phrase is about, is finding ways to build on an incredible base of opportunity. And certainly the defense sector provides that, the hospitality sector provides that, but finding ways to expand on that so that we're better positioned, we're already well positioned, but better positioned to survive in times of economic challenge.
Absolutely. We saw that both with the nationwide downturn in the economy that did impact some of the Defense Department things, and then with the Deep Horizons oil spill,
right?
Deepwater Horizons, we saw the impact to our tourism. And so to move into a third leg of the stool, I think, is critical. And we look forward to some ideas on how you might do that. But let me take you back to the preserve part first.
Right.
A lot of economic development theory say that you should spend 80% of your time on current businesses. So with that in mind, how are you going to reach out to our current businesses, our current members, to be able to help them?
Well, it's a point that often doesn't get as much attention, frankly, from an economic development organization, not just our organization, but many organizations around this country. You know, the things that get the big press and that everybody gets excited about are when a new industry comes to town. But if you don't take care of those businesses that are there and serve as a resource to those businesses that are there, then you won't have success. To my earlier point, you won't have success in bringing the new businesses in. So I strongly subscribe to the fact that we have to focus some very targeted attention on the existing industries. And in Georgia, we were very effective in my previous community at creating a team that was comprised of folks from our utilities, folks from our educational institutions, folks from our workforce training organizations, and really going out in a team of 4 and 5 people and visiting with industry and really listening to what their challenges were and listening to what their opportunities were. Right. And then we were better able to say, okay, in this case, we have a program, or our partner has a program that can help respond to that opportunity or to that challenge. And I'd really suggest that this is something that we could borrow from here in Okaloosa County. I know that we've done some existing industry outreach, but I think we can really turn it up a notch.
I think that's an important part, and so often what an industry needs is something little, something simple.
Right.
Maybe a sidewalk out in front of the building isn't maintained properly.
Right.
And so we could help out on arranging for things like that. So there's a lot of things that we could do, and I'm glad that you have thought about those things. Now I know that you've just started.
Right.
A full 5 days on the job so far. What's your initial impressions of the staff and the organization and those kinds of things?
Well, as we touched on earlier, you know, I had prior knowledge of the Okaloosa EDC from my time with Florida's Great Northwest in St. Joe, and granted that knowledge is 8 years old at this point. I've been very pleased to see, Jim, that the organization has done a great job of growing and evolving in the 8 years that have passed. And so with that, you know, I think that there's a great foundation. You've got we have a tremendous staff. We have a group that is very well diversified in terms of their areas of expertise and their abilities and capabilities. So we've got the right format. Certainly there are ways to always grow and improve that, and make sure that we're ever evolving in terms of our responsiveness and our abilities to do the mission of economic development, and we'll be doing some of that, looking at structures and looking at ways to continue to take a good organization to a great organization. But the bottom line is I've been very impressed both with the staff and the community support. That's been frankly overwhelming. It's clear that the leadership in this community supports the Economic Development Council.
Right.
And that is essential, frankly, to have success. If you're not all pulling in the same direction, then you're not going to be effective. Economic development is just too darn competitive to not have everybody aligned and working off the same sheet of music.
Absolutely, and as we've discussed, you mentioned it earlier as we were chatting just before the program, economic development is a team sport.
It is.
And I know in your first 90 days that you have some goals to get out and meet people, meet the community leaders, the elected officials. Where do you think that the most opportunity will be?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. It is a team sport, and I believe that we've got an opportunity to continue to build on the support that we have. You know, we have to have our partners all aligned with us, and we want to support them and hope that they support us. So when I refer to partners, you know, I'm obviously talking about the chambers of commerce in the area, the elected leadership, the businesses in the community, the whole enchilada, if you will. We have to make certain that we are listening to their respective missions and their visions, and that we align closely with what they believe this community can become, and that we have a well-articulated community vision collectively to get to where we want to be and where we think we can be.
Absolutely. And I know you're trying to set up a schedule to get out there and meet everybody, and so I'd say to the audience that if you want to meet with Nathan privately, give him a call, that he will be setting up times to go meet with the chambers. I think you've already been at one of the chambers in just the first week, and obviously go to the city council meetings and the county commissioner meetings and things along those lines. So you'll be busy here in the next few months.
I will, and I look forward to that. And truly, I'm sincere in stating that if there are ideas out there as far as areas this community and this organization needs to focus on, I am all ears. Obviously, being new in this role, a lot of what I'll be doing, just to overstress, we'll be listening these first few weeks in particular. And I certainly appreciate any feedback that the viewers may have.
And I know you'll be reaching out to our state in terms of Enterprise Florida and the Florida Defense Alliance and things along those lines. I think you've already got some contacts there, so it's renewing those kinds of things. I think this will be an exciting time. I know that you've already met with your counterparts in the surrounding counties.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share a little bit about what the strategy is in terms of doing that?
Well, I appreciate the question. Yeah, my first day on the job, in fact, I was with my counterparts from 4 of the surrounding counties, from Escambia over to Bay County. And the subject of this conversation was how can these counties that are obviously located with proximity to Mobile and the future Airbus facility, how can we work together to harness and capitalize on the opportunity that Airbus presents? Specifically, what I'm referring to is the opportunity to recruit suppliers, Airbus suppliers, to Northwest Florida. We truly have an opportunity here. You know, the proximity is obvious, but the workforce opportunities are also compelling.
Right.
You know, the fact that we do have such a strong technical labor force is something that will resonate with the European decision makers as they're beginning to contemplate where they're going to put these facilities. And what we're hearing is that in many cases, both Airbus and the suppliers don't want the suppliers to be located adjacent or right in their backyard, so to speak. They want to be close, but they don't necessarily always want to compete with one another for labor. And so we really believe that we've got a strong opportunity in this region and in Okaloosa County specifically, given our defense assets and the aviation proposition that we have, to capitalize on the Airbus presence in Mobile.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time together, but I do want to pose one last question, which is, I know you have been successful in strategic planning in the past. What's the initial thing that we'll do to get some strategic planning for our Economic Development Council?
Great question, and from my experience, you have to do some planning in order to be able to benchmark success, frankly, and that's where we intend to start. Is in terms of the EDC's next chapter is to really convene a group of our executive board, our executive committee, and begin to talk about where the organization has been successful, where we could improve, and really have a candid conversation about what the future holds. And I look forward to that. I think that that will result in a roadmap that will allow us to develop very targeted goals and objectives that we can use to communicate with partners, to share the value proposition of investing in the EDC with our corporate partners and our public sector partners, and ultimately to gauge success. Are we hitting the marks that we need to hit in order to take Okaloosa County to the next level?
Great. Well, I know this is way too short to answer all the questions, but the truth is that you will have many opportunities to be on this show in the future. So Nathan, thank you very much for joining me today. Thank the audience for coming to us and being a part of the Vision of Progress. We look forward to seeing the successes of economic development in our county in the future, and I'll see you next time.